Yeah, thanks for the introduction, John. As you said, I'm from Ovum. We're a research company covering the TMT space. I'm from our media and entertainment team, and I'm delighted to be here to speak to you about what is increasingly a more important area for Ovum as our research, our clients, and also the aim of this session, and that's the future of ad-supported online video. So I wanted to start off by contextualizing the importance of that ad-supported part of the market. And in doing so, I wanted to pose a question. And that question is, where will the money be in TV and video between now and 2023? So I'm going to do that by plotting the various consumer TV and video segments covered by Ovum in our various forecasts. The bubble size is going to represent the overall revenue size in 2023, and then the different plotting on horizontal and vertical axes is going to show the growth between 2018 and 2023. So where do we stand? So in the bottom left, we've got TV advertising and pay TV, the stalwarts of the TV and video ecosystem. And one thing worth noting there is that those bubble sizes are still going to be very big in 2023. And in fact, they're going to be the two biggest, which is great. We all want to be working for companies that are bringing in a lot of revenue. But the fact that they're down in that bottom left-hand corner also means that there's not going to be much growth in those two segments between now and 2023. But what is growing? Well, as you probably guessed, OTT platforms. So there are paid OTT segments. We've got OTT TVOD, but you can see that the dominant business model is going to be OTT subscription. But on top of that, we've also got online video advertising, which is effectively going to double in its value between 2018 and 2023. But what you can see is that we've got the subscription and the advertising models in that top right-hand corner, which means that they're going to be adding the most value to the overall market. And just imagine if you could find some kind of way of combining those two. I'm sure we're going to hear more about that later. But for now, I just want to focus on the impact of that advertising segment. So what's it going to do? Well, it's going to impact in two ways. It's going to impact the traditional TV and video players down in the bottom. So essentially, I'll carry on talking what I was going to say. Basically, that online video segment is going to impact in two ways. It's going to impact those traditional TV and advertising players in the bottom left, because they're going to be focusing more on that segment for driving new growth. In fact, we think that over the next 5 years, between 2018 and 2023, 82% of total TV and video advertising growth is going to come from that online video segment. On the other side, we're also getting the digital incumbents from the digital display market moving further into that online video space. So you've got the Googles and the Facebooks. And that's creating a completely new dynamic, a much more competitive environment for advertiser spend, consumer engagement, and also content. Right, so who's winning the battle for OTT AVOD? So what we're talking about here is TV-like online video advertising delivered over the open internet in TV-like video environments, so in-stream video advertising like what you'd find on ITV Hub, All4, and also YouTube. So this is global, excluding China, which has a much more different competitive dynamic. So what we're seeing in our estimates in 2018, YouTube by Google is the dominant platform, accounting for 46% of total revenue outside of China. Meanwhile, Facebook only occupies a much smaller percentage, and there's a reason behind that, and that's because Facebook's in-stream video advertising offering is still fairly nascent, and it actually only launched its global AVOD service, Watch, on a global basis back in August 2018. That's because this segment of the market excludes social and outstream video, which isn't directly aligned with TV and video content, and therefore we exclude it from our AVOD definition. Then we have broadcasters. They've still got a fairly sizable chunk of total OTT AVOD revenue on a global basis, accounting for about a third of the market. And then bringing up the rear, we've got other AVOD platforms, accounting for about 17%. But how's this going to change between now and 2023? Well, by and large, we expect YouTube and Google to maintain their share of the market. It might go down a little bit. That's mainly due to the growth of Facebook and Facebook Watch, which we expect to grow in usage and advertiser spend over the coming years, particularly in emerging markets. But the upshot of this is that broadcasters, we expect to drop their share of total OTT AVOD revenue by 7 percentage points. That doesn't mean that there's not growth in that segment, but it means that an increasing share of the new growth in the TV and video advertising is going to those digital incumbents, YouTube, Facebook, and other AVOD platforms. So that's the battle for OTT AVOD spend. What about the battle for consumer attention? Well, we ran a survey of internet users in Australia, Brazil, Germany, the UK, and the US, and we asked them about their usage of free online video platforms. specifically how often they use them. And what we've done here is we've been able to plot total reach of those platforms, so taken as monthly active users as a percentage of those internet users, against engagement, which we've taken as the proportion of those monthly active users that use on at least a daily basis. And where do they sit? Well, what we can see here is that in spite of all the recent issues that Facebook's had around privacy, it's still leading the social video charge. YouTube, although it's having some issues of its own at the moment, also leads in terms of reach and also sees very significant levels of engagement. But where do broadcasters sit on this? Well, they're not in such a great position. And there's a couple of caveats here. One, that's the average of all of the apps run by broadcasters we asked about in our survey, so that's about 21 different services. And also, yes, broadcasters are still seeing significant levels of success in driving viewing minutes on their linear environments. But what is the problem is the fact that this OTT segment is going to be accounting for a predominant part of the growth in TV and video advertising over the next few years. And in order to capture more of that growth, broadcasters and other premium AVOD platforms are going to have to migrate themselves further up into that top right quadrant. But there is an area that broadcasters are already winning and will continue to win, as well as premium AVOD platforms, and that's content. And what we found by asking those same consumers, those same monthly AVOD viewers across those markets, plus China, is that accessing premium content is a major driver of free online video viewing. But obviously, the top answer when we ask them, why do you use those free online video services? Because they're free. I mean, everyone loves a free lunch, right? I'm sure everyone's looking forward to one today. But if you go a bit further down, you'll see that 3 of the next 4 most important reasons for accessing those free online video services was to access premium TV-like content, and specifically to watch live TV channels was there as well, demonstrating the continued importance of linear and live delivery in OTT environments. And that's not just driving the usage of those free online video services, but it's also really important. So we heard BBC News talk about their importance on connected TVs earlier on, and yes, news and current affairs is really important. It's always the most important content type when we ask this question to our consumers. But the general trend here is that all of the different types of TV and video content that we would associate with a premium viewing environment on broadcaster channels and also catch-up services are much more important to consumers than the kind of content that's flourishing on social video platforms. And what's this desire for premium content going to do? Well, we think it's going to impact the market in a couple of ways. Firstly, the likes of Google and Facebook are going to start to up their game in trying to acquire premium advertiser-friendly content, which is really important in an era when they're seeing, well, they seem to be seeing brand safety issues every other day. We also think that it's going to drive an increasing number of viewing minutes to premium viewing environments. And in the living room, that means the connected smart TV. So what we have here is the global installed base of connected devices in 2018, covered by Ovum, that can be used to access TV and video content online. On the left, we've got mobile devices, which has long been the domain of Google and Facebook. On the right, we have traditional TV sets, which for decades has been the domain of traditional broadcasters. But in the middle, we have the connected smart TV, where the two worlds collide. And that's becoming a much more competitive environment, especially as what we're seeing is that increasing share of viewing minutes are going towards that device type, as well as ad impressions. They're almost exploding. And in fact, for Google's YouTube, that connected smart TV, along with other living room devices, is the fastest growing screen in terms of viewing minutes. So what that's doing is it's making Google and Facebook, and also Amazon, pay much greater attention to that device type in the bid to get their content, services, and even operating systems on as many of those devices as possible. At the same time, broadcasters are always also looking for prominent placement in those smart operating systems. And then at the same time, we've also got manufacturers. So that's smart TV manufacturers, but also manufacturers of other connected TV devices, such as Amazon Fire TV Stick and also Roku. I'm sure we'll be hearing a bit more about that a little bit later on. But they're also looking to take a share of this pie. And while there's no clear winner at the moment here, what is clear is that opportunity is going to grow significantly. Because while we expect mobile devices and TV sets to continue to grow in terms of installed base between now and 2022, that growth is going to be dwarfed by that of connected smart TVs. And what does that mean for broadcasters and other AVOD, premium AVOD platforms? Well, this is a bit better news. Because when we look at broadcaster video on demand advertising revenue, we expect that the connected TV is going to drive the most revenue, new growth in revenue between now and 2023. Yes, mobile is going to be very important, but connected TV is going to be the biggest driver. And that's going to come in spite of a number of challenges. Firstly, we've got a reduced tolerance of ads in OTT environments, which has been brought on by the likes of Netflix, normalizing accessing premium video content without ads. We've also got challenges around targeting and measurement in cookieless environments on TV. The same methods of tracking and targeting that were applied on the open web cannot be used in the same manner on connected TV environments. There's also tech tax on leading platforms, so reaching those consumers with that content is increasingly going to involve going through the major platforms. So that might be Amazon Fire TV, it might be Roku, it might be Google. And what we're seeing is that these platforms are already looking to take a share of ad inventory and revenue that flows through their platforms and devices. And then finally, we've still got a disconnect between TV and digital advertising, not just in terms of what's going to be measured, but also in what the aims of that type of advertising will be. And yes, there are a lot of people who would say that they don't necessarily need to match up. They both do different things very well. TV has mass reach. Digital can drive direct outcomes. And there's definitely a case for that. But what is clear is that the likes of Google, Facebook, and increasingly Amazon are looking to colonize the customer journey across a myriad of different device types, consumer contexts, one of which is TV and video content. And they're all able to draw mass reach and also tie that back to individual purchases. And broadcasters need to think about how they can compete in this new advertising dynamic. So I think I've got a little bit of time left, so I just wanted to finish by just offering a few of our thoughts or some of our research into what is the driving force of this session, and that's the hybrid monetization opportunity between advertising and subscriptions. So what do consumers think of this? So this is something that we've done a bit of research into, and what I want to share here is something from our consumer insight survey again. So we asked consumers what's their preferred means of accessing premium online video content. And it's worth noting that this chart shows the responses of subscription OTT video users, so those users that are already paying to access premium online video content. So what were the options? So we found that just under a third would prefer to view on a completely free basis. We've dubbed that the YouTube model, the base YouTube model. Interestingly, a lower proportion of those OTT premium users would actually prefer the Netflix model of paying a higher subscription cost in return for an ad-free experience. But perhaps most interestingly is that the highest proportion preferred that hybrid approach of lowering the subscription fee by subsidizing through ads, which is the kind of thing that Hulu does in the US. But what does that mean? Well, it means that there's going to be a continued importance of advertising in the OTT video environment. It also means that hybrid approaches to monetization are definitely worth exploring. But the fact that there's no clear winner here also suggests that consumer tastes vary significantly. And accounting for those individual nuances in consumer tastes is going to be essential for any platform owners exploring this monetization approach. So what can we take away from today's session, apart from that this needed new batteries? We can see that competition for TV and video ad revenue growth is increasing as digital players increasingly duke it out with traditional TV and video players. And that new approaches are going to be required to meet the threat of those digital incumbents as they move further into the space of traditional broadcasters. We also learned that as premium content grows in importance for both platform owners and also consumers, the smart TV is going to be the big next battleground for premium AVOD. And then finally, there's definitely a case for hybrid monetization strategies, but a nuanced approach is going to be essential in maintaining success in this environment. Thanks for listening. Happy to take any questions.
So, I want to say, first of all, Matthew, a massive well done. I think you navigated that expertly. I would have panicked and fled the stage, which I may well do later. I think we probably have time for a question or two. Does anyone have one? There was masses to take in there. If not, I'm going to have to improvise. Sure, there's one. Richard, at the front, you must have a question. No questions. I have a question for you, which is just about your smart TV research.
Okay.
Whenever I look at smart TVs, I sort of feel that broadcasters have ruled the roost in that space, and that the news from here on forwards is going to be nothing but bad, in the sense that there are lots more competitors making their way onto those screens. But you seem to be a bit more optimistic about broadcasters.
It's a natural environment for their content. And delivering OTT for broadcasters can actually be as simple as flicking a switch from a live TV channel on a smart TV to just saying, oh, I want that OTT feed. So it's going to be a natural kind of response for consumers to make that switch to OTT. I mean, to the consumer, it doesn't really matter whether it's OTT or whether it's linear broadcast. So yeah, I think they still have a significant advantage on those platforms.
Right.
Discovery is not as much of an issue for broadcasters as it will be for those myriad like SVOD players.
Fingers crossed. Okay, Matthew, thank you ever so much. Big hand to Matthew, everybody.
Thank you.